Hello, good morning. I am Grandmaster Castillo of Krav Maga Martial Arts, and today I want to talk to you a little bit about 9/11, about specifically September 11th of 2001. And it's almost cliche at this point, and the young people that cannot relate to this have certainly at least heard it many times before, because it's almost cliche that we all remember exactly where we were at that time. And that's true, isn't it? If you are of an age where you were of an age of understanding on September 11th of 2001, then you do remember in vivid detail exactly where you were and what you were doing. For me, I was in our first little dojo. We had been open, about a year, and it was still in a little 1,000 square foot place, right where Bruce B. Downs and 54 come together in Wesley Chapel, long before it was what is now Wesley Chapel. And there was one of my students was the Marine recruiter right next door, Matt the Marine. We still call him to this day, even though he's long since retired from the Marines. And I was working out. I was running kata, which means I was doing my forms on my little dojo side, when Matt the Marine came storming in. He said, Steve, come. The Twin Towers have been attacked. The towers have been attacked. And I came over and he had the TV playing. And I walked into his office just as the second tower was being attacked. And I remember for a brief moment, I looked at him like thinking it was some kind of practical joke. I had that moment of almost denial, like this can't be real, that probably many people went through. And I remember after that, and of course, we sat most of the rest of the morning together watching what had been going on, talking, drinking coffee. And I remember I went through deliberation about whether to stay open that day or not. And I remember that we did. And that night I just began every class with a moment of silence. And then we talked about what it meant and what we were going through. And then I did my best to do what I was called to do in that moment, which was lead my tribe the best I could where I was at. Tried to provide leadership and solace and guidance, because let me tell you something, for all of you that weren't around, the world was going a little crazy, right? And specifically, we were going crazy, like wondering what is really happening and what does this mean and what's important next. So that's where I was at. And at the end of this, I'm actually going to challenge you all to go to my official KMA family page. I'll make sure that we get a link in here or something, and share where you were at, because I think that's an important part of remembering. But as is my tradition, of course, I want to take the events and I want to turn it into a lesson. So I want to share three, what I call black belt leadership lessons that I think are evident in this tragedy that day. And, as is often the case in history, the most important part of history, just like the important part of our own personal history, our own past, is what can we learn from what happened, good and bad. And by the way, speaking of history, you never know when you're standing in a moment of history. It could be a whole lesson on itself, but it's not what I want to talk about today. But it's like, make the most of every moment of every day, not only because we don't know when is our last. Certainly the victims of 9/11 on that day did not go to work planning for it to be their last. We also know, you never know when you happen to be standing in a moment of history. And I'll tell you, with digital photography and everything today, there's probably a better chance of the young capturing those moments anyway. But I mean, here I was. I don't know if you can really see that thing with the glare and everything, but here I was as a captain in the military. This was my last duty station, standing on the pier in Bayonne, New Jersey, with the Twin Towers behind us, me and my stepfather, Oscar. That picture has become very, very memorable to me, of course, because that's a memory of a good time. And again, and by the way, I never went to the towers. I never really thought twice about the towers. Isn't it also crazy how sometimes it takes a really negative event to make us realize, all the good around us. So let's skip to the three lessons. That's hopefully a good segue into it. The first lesson I want to talk about that we teach all the time here at Krav Maga Martial Arts is the 10-90 rule. And that is that life is truly 10% what happens to us and 90% how we react to it. And here's what I mean to say. You know, on that day, not only did the victims not plan for that to happen, but certainly all of those heroes that emerged, and those firemen and those policemen and all that stepped up, and the leadership, you know, uh, the leadership, the leadership at a national level, at a local level, Giuliani in New York, and then, like I said, the fire chiefs, the police chiefs, all the leadership, all the planning, all the coordination, all the heroes that sprung into action and reacted. Look, I know that someone looking at it from a pessimistic view can be like, well, life was also 10%. That 10% really meant a lot to those that lost their lives that day, and you would be right. But that part was not within our control. What was the reaction. And the reaction of the men and women that became the heroes of 9/11 was commendable. Which leads to the second lesson, which is focus. I always tell my students that we get more of what we focus on, so we have to focus our focus. We have to deliberately, because there's never a shortage of bad things to focus on in our lives. There's never a shortage of good things to focus on. And look, don't get me wrong. What happened on that day was certainly one of the worst things to happen to us as a people, and certainly to the individuals that experienced it firsthand. And it was a terrible thing based on hate and evil. And it was bad. That is a reality. But as I already begun to do in this message, I choose to remember, especially, like of course, we can neither deny that that was an act of evil based in hate. But we must also be cautious not to focus on the hate, but to focus on the heroes. I choose to focus on the leadership, the heroism, and even the way the country came together. It was a divided country then too. And look at the way that we came together as Americans in our one of our greatest times of need. So the first was that, those leaders and heroes were prepared and tenacious, and they reacted, and they answered the call. And the second was that as we remember, and we should always remember, we should never forget. But as we remember, choose to focus especially on all those things, on the heroes, on the leadership, and on the American emotion, the American sentiment, the American greatness that resonated in that time. And then the third lesson is win. What's important next? All these lessons have, of course, tied together a lot, but, I'd say number one, never forget. Number two, we do always have to be prepared, because the reality of the situation is that evil does exist in the world. Bad things do happen. And while we should always pray for and expect the best, that's the focus on the good part, we also have to train for the worst. That's the preparedness part, which leads to the final piece of this, right? Like the final piece of a win is our mission statement at Krav Maga Martial Arts. Our mission is to create confident and competent black belt leaders, prepared to survive and thrive in any situation, and empowered to lead where they're at and into their futures. I think that both parts, like under our logo, it just says prepare to live, empower to lead. It's, the shortened version of that mission statement. And that's what we do. Prepare to live means both making the most, recognizing that every day is a gift from God, and we need to make the most of every moment that we are given every day to be our best and to positively influence others and to be a blessing to others. All of those things, and to survive and thrive in any situation. We are to be thermostats, not thermometers. The bad things that happen to us happen to all of us. And the key is to circle of concern and circle of control, to control the piece that I can control to make this day, this situation, this challenge better. And then the empowered to lead is listen, again, Neither those leaders, the ones that were already in positions of leadership, nor the ones that were thrust into leadership, expected that to happen that day. And so empowered to lead, means the little things like developing focus and respect and discipline and confidence and gratitude and vision in our youth so that they will be the leaders of tomorrow. It's amazing that I'm calling those little things. Those are the things. But empowered to lead also means just empowered to answer the call when there's an opportunity to be a leader or an opportunity to be a hero, because something has happened where a leader is needed. We often also talk about that quote that luck is what happens when preparedness meets opportunity. Well, that's the same of leadership. Whether or not you're consciously seeking leadership, we should be training for it such that you're ready for it when it's thrust upon you and me and all of us. Prepare to live, empower to lead. Make this a meaningful 9/11 day. Remember, meditate, share with the youngins that were not there. But make sure to share these lessons too, because that tragedy wasn't theirs. It's only a moment in time. It's only an event in history. But they'll have theirs too. They'll have their time that they are called. And the important thing is that we remember to prepare to survive and thrive in those situations, and that we empower to lead, to positively influence, and make the painful times as good as possible for those that follow. I'm Shan Steve, Maga Martial Arts. Prepare to live, empower to lead.